So welcome one and all to Otaku News Live for Saturday, January 22nd, 2011. I have with me on Skype two very distinguished gentlemen. I've got Brian Rue, welcome Brian to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and you've done all sorts of interesting stuff in the anime world. So tell the folks what you've done.
Okay, well, let's see. The thing that I'm doing right now that I'm doing every week, I'm writing a column on Anime News Network called Rain Diving.
Great.
And in the column, I basically kind of take a look at various topics throughout the week. Mostly concentrating on books. Like right now, I'm reading for my next column. I'm gonna be doing a review of the new novel Marduk Scramble.
Oh,
which,
cool.
Yeah, so that should be kind of interesting. It's a really incredibly long book. It's like almost 800 pages.
Jeez.
And I'm plowing through that. It's interesting, but you'll have to wait to hear my impressions on that.
Brain diving will be returning this summer.
Excuse me?
Brain diving will be returning this summer once the author is done reading this novel.
Yeah, something like that. Like that. No, I've actually managed to get through it pretty much in a week.
Wow,
so
cool.
I'm very impressed with myself. Let's see, but other things that I have done. I do have a website. It's animeresearch.com, and actually I'm on Twitter too at animeresearch. That's my Twitter handle. And I've been meaning for years to kind of relaunch Anime Research because there's a whole redesign that I actually I've been working on slowly but surely. And so any day now, I'm gonna relaunch that website. But it's unfortunately it always has to take a backseat to the other things that I've been working on.
Sure.
And let's see, the other things. Oh, I'm currently a PhD student, and I'm writing my dissertation on anime and globalization. And I've also written a book that came out a few years ago on Mamoru Oshii, the director, and it's called Stray Dog of Anime. So if you're interested in Oshii, I encourage you to go pick that up.
Yes, it's one of the very few books on Oshii, surprisingly, out in America.
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. And apparently one that is well-liked among other folks who like to write books about anime and manga and that like to use it liberally.
I hope so. Yeah.
Cool. And so very, very excited to have Brian here. We also have Matt Dixon from the Life and Tims of Anime.
That intro was awesome.
Thank you very much.
But I was waiting so long to say it. I was like, come on, say it. Yes, hello. It's always a pleasure to be here. I always have all my hats with me, and that's all I'll say.
That is very true. So let's get started with the news. I wanted to talk through some of the news of the week, and the big one would be what's going on with Fractal, and folks who are just kind of, talking about that now that they actually have something to talk about. So Fractal started a couple of weeks ago. It was simulcast by Funimation, and then they stopped simulcasting it, and no one was quite sure why. Of the three people who actually watched it, and then it was announced that basically the Fractal Production Committee, the folks who make it, told Funimation that they're not going to let them simulcast it until Funimation has removed the fan subs thereof, and done whatever they can to release it. And as I was saying on the Brent's Anime News Corner earlier, the one thing about that is, legitimately, fan subbers, the understood agreement is that fan subbers would fan sub this stuff until it was available, and they would stop. And so the production company is basically saying, well, since you're still fan subbing it, even though it's available streaming, simulcasting, then that needs to stop. Unfortunately, they chose the wrong anime to do this with, because as we were talking about earlier, I don't think anyone. Fractal just kind of appeared, and everyone went, eh. So it kind of odd behavior on the part of the Japanese, I think.
Did they have to pay to watch the simulcasting, or was the simulcasting free?
Free.
then why keep fan subbing? That seems really pointless.
I don't know.
If a professional company is doing your work for you, for other people to do, to sell the work for free, which you're also doing, why do it? Just, the company that is made to do this stuff has taken over your job that you are doing for no pay. You sit back and relax and enjoy it. You don't keep doing the work for no pay.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Maybe
it was kind of a stick it to the man thing.
Could be.
Yeah, that's definitely. That's always a factor. I think. No matter, the whole thing with fan subs. Even if you could, even if you gave anime away for free these days, I think you would still have people pirating it just because, So, but.
Just to minimise the effort you have to put in to get the free anime, because people are so lazy they can't be bothered to go down to the shops to pick up free anime. They have to do it on the computer.
Well, that's kind of,
maybe later.
Well, that's kind of the odd thing is you go to this site to watch the fan sub or this site to watch the free legal streaming version. It's like, is it somehow more effort to type the URL of illegalanimestreaming.com as opposed to Funimation.com? I don't know. It's
and the Funimation website's it's probably not a big margin, but there's still a marginal chance on the illegal site that you'll get a virus or some sort of keylogger on the Funimation website. Yes, it's still possible, but a lot less possible. So again, why bother?
Yeah.
Well,
the other odd thing too about this, actually, someone in the chat room pointed out ads. That's actually one of the things. I get really tired of the ads on the streaming sites. The other folks do have ads, but I find the ads on the streaming sites more annoying personally. Either way, I gotta say one of the odd things is how Fractal. Fractal was gonna be the big, revolutionary anime of the season. It was gonna be wow, we got folks who really care making an anime. And no one cares.
It's always nice when a plan falls through like that. Except with anime.
Yeah.
Actually, even in anime.
Yeah. Brian, have you seen Fractal yet?
Yeah, I did watch I watched the first episode when I was streaming.
What did you think?
I liked it. I found it enjoyable.
Yeah.
It was. I definitely saw it. It seemed like it had plucked bits and pieces out from various anime that had come before. Definitely.
Yeah.
Here's a Miyazaki influence in that glider that the woman was flying. Oh, here the two sidekicks seemed like straight out of Nadia.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
There were some other ones too, some other different kinds of things. But at the same time, one of the reasons that I was really interested in Fractal is that the guy who wrote the overall story, Azuma.
Yeah.
So he's
you read the book, haven't you?
Yeah, I read the book. Yeah, I wrote a column not too long ago, actually.
Oh, that's
on
right.
the book,
that's right.
On his book Otaku.
Yeah.
And so he's definitely an anime and otaku kind of theorist, and it seemed to me like he was going to do something really interesting further on down the line. I think he kind of had to establish, okay, this is the world that we're in, and I think he's intentionally kind of throwing these references in there to kind of maybe play around with them a little bit later. But I don't know. Legally, I can't find out now.
True. And it's one of the interesting things. I have this slight theory that, frankly, anime fans aren't used to shows that start slow. Most anime these days have to have a really remarkable first episode. And it used to be back in the 80s, they were really slow to start up. I remember watching Giant Gorg, the mecha anime, and it took like 4 episodes for them to find the frickin' mecha. It's just that's how they told stories back then. I think this is deliberately sort of a throwback to those days, and I totally understand why modern otaku are looking at this and saying it's not very interesting. Well, that's how he's structuring it. And I think honestly, it was a mistake on his part to do that. Unfortunately,
mean, I agree with you with how it was. I mean, it's definitely paced like one of those older, and especially with the with the designs and
yeah.
I mean, it was pleasant. It didn't seem like anything groundbreaking for that first episode.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh well, you live and you learn, and apparently you make an anime that no one watches. Oh well. So let's see here. All right, so Golden Kids, the soccer anime that has launched as an iOS app with 4 dubs. So if you download the iOS app, which apparently is free, you can get the show dubbed in Japanese, English, Portuguese, or Spanish. This is the soccer anime by the creator of Captain Tsubasa, which is probably the biggest soccer anime ever. And my gosh, the fact that a Japanese company, the Japanese folks are dubbing it themselves, that's a surprise.
So this hasn't been on TV previously yet. This is just new. This has gone straight to the iOS.
I believe so, yeah.
That is awesome. That is just the fact that it's come out dubbed in 4 languages, no less, straight away.
Yeah.
Let alone on an iPad app. That's not only keeping it awesome, that's keeping it modern.
Yeah.
It's good to see that the Japanese company straight away thought, let's dub it and put it on this iPad app, because the iPad is incredibly popular, and if it's on an app, it's likely to get found, even in America. It's a shame it was about a sport I couldn't care any less about, but it's awesome that they've done it. Again, it's what we talked about with Iron Man. It's a good olive branch, saying we've done this straight away out of the kindness of our own hearts. Basically, well, it's not. It's the kindness of our own wallets. But if Japan keeps doing this kind of stuff, America will do more of this stuff, or the Western world will do more of this stuff, and say, let's license more anime, let's take more risks, So we've just got to hope that this soccer anime does well. And if a soccer anime can do well, any anime can do well. Tante Opera Milky Holmes can do well. If a soccer anime can do well.
Oh, I sure hope not. Just to clarify, the app is free. Each episode costs $3 US or 350 yen in Japan via an in-app download. Good. So that's certainly a reasonable price. What's also interesting? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if either of you have actually seen it yet.
I haven't. No, I'm going to have to go and download it and see what it looks like. I'll definitely buy the first episode and see what it's like.
I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I'm curious to see.
It'd be interesting to see the effort that's put into the anime itself.
Yeah.
If it's solely for an iPad,
good point.
It'd be interesting to see how they've done it, because thinking about it, the fact that it's on an iPad, we could end up with another Lovecraft kind of thing. The Lovecraft anime, it was purely Flash anime.
Yeah.
And if it is, it's going to tank, because especially the Western world are just going to think, this is crap. There's no effort put into this. Very few people are going to sit there and watch through it, especially something as fast paced as a game like soccer. Why am I saying it's football?
Thank you.
If a fast paced game like football is made into that kind of a slow paced animation for what Lovecraft was done, no one's going to enjoy it, because it's all about quick cuts, fast editing, all the swooping lines, all that jazz. And if it doesn't have that, it'll tank. Again, it's another reason why it'll tank.
What's also interesting about this, actually, is the fact that, this is a kids' anime. And they're not putting it on TV, they're putting it on iPhones and iPod Touches.
That is weird.
They're betting that 12-year-olds are all going to be watching this on iPod Touches, which, I understand the technological penetration in Japan is much different than over here, but that still seems like quite a jump.
It seems, again, it's this other kind of weird thing they've done.
Yeah.
I can see the idea of doing it on the iPad, because if you have, I think it's called an iTV or an Apple TV. If you have that, you can play whatever you've got on your iPad on the iTV. So then if you're tinkering with the iPad and your kids are annoying you, you just say, "Oi, watch this." But if it's a kids anime, it seems rather pointless. But again, it's the whole portability thing, because you're not going to be using your iPad or iPhone, sorry, while you're driving, are you?
Right.
But who's sat in the back of the car?
Yeah.
So you just say, "Oh, you watch this."
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to do that, hide your personal NSFW pictures in a fault your kid can't reach.
Which they'll find in half an hour anyway. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she plays on my iPhone all the time. And sometimes when we're in the car or waiting at a restaurant or something, we're getting fidgety, like oh, here you can play Angry Birds or what have you. So I mean, I could definitely see that it would work. I mean, not many kids are probably that this show would be aimed at are going to be going on and getting it themselves, but I could see them maybe bugging their parents for it, and their parents, buying the app and putting it on the phone or the iPad or something.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know every parent that I know who has an iPad or an iPhone or an iPod Touch, their kids are using it almost as much as they are. For that exact thing, games or videos or whatever.
That's another thing, actually. It's probably going to be, I think, just in my opinion, it's going to be more the parents finding it and going, "Oh, this would be good for my kids." But a Western, parents, the current generation that is almost saying anime is the work of the devil, going to be saying, "Ooh, an anime, I'm going to let my 6-year-old child watch this."
True.
It's unlikely. So, again, it's a nice olive branch, but the olive branch seems to be not olives. It's covered in plums for some reason, and we don't like plums. Well, of course we do. Plums are awesome, but the point is made the same.
Right. Yes.
It seems to be filled with these odd decisions. It's an odd decision in the first place to choose something like not just a kids anime, but a football anime.
Mm-hmm. It's something.
So I don't understand where they're going with it, or what they intend to or hope to achieve out of it.
Well, it's something, and I think as Brian put it, I think it's one of those things where it'll see a lot more activity in Japan than over here. And they've probably, I think, honestly, they've probably done the English and Spanish and Portuguese dubs more just sort of to cover their bases. Hey, it's available. We can put it on there. We'll do it. We'll get a few sales. Fine. And then
the Spanish is really into kids anime. I don't know if either of you have been to Spain.
No.
But it's like Shin-chan is incredibly popular over there.
Interesting.
It's mentally popular. So Spanish or Spain, it's not called Spanish. It's in Spain. It might do well because they seem to be really up for letting their kids watch anime. It's not like it is over here where everyone of every age watches it.
Yeah.
So it might do a bit better over there.
Yeah. And of course, Spanish.
Plus,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say. I mean, plus being a soccer or football anime.
Yeah.
I mean, having it being dubbed in Portuguese and Spanish, I definitely think seems like a smart move.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, Spanish and Portuguese covers a very large number of nations on this planet. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is interesting. I'll be curious to see. I wish we could get some statistics on that app and see how well it's doing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be and like you say, it's an experiment. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it won't tank or anything. So Asylum Session. I wish I'd heard of this before, but apparently it just came out of nowhere. Section 23 announced this film called Asylum. They licensed this film called Asylum Session. It is a 3D anime style film. So kind of Appleseed-ish, only a little less like aggressively cel shaded. So it looks a little bit more like normal anime. It was announced in summer of 2009 as a 3D anime film. A girl runs away from her father, finds herself at an asylum stadium, this abandoned field with homeless weird people. It was produced by Comics Wave, and Aya Hirano is the main character, which immediately gets folks' attention. And it's going to be released April 26th over here, and it sounds like a really interesting film. And it's one of those things that sort of seems to have come in off under the radar.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is the fact that it came under the radar and Aya Hirano's in it.
Yeah.
You'd think something that Aya Hirano is in would just fly over the radar, or fly through it, more like.
Yeah.
But anyway, the fact that Aya Hirano is interesting because she said she wasn't going to do any more voice acting, but it was unlikely that she was going to do much more.
Right.
So I don't know if they were working on this before she made the announcement.
Must have been. I mean,
yeah, because it is a film, so I guess she probably was.
Oh wow! It premiered in July of 2009.
Wow.
What? So yeah.
Yeah,
this is probably before she found out she had a tumor.
Yeah, probably.
I was looking some stuff up. Yeah, it was saying that it had like a 2-theater theatrical run or something like that. So yeah, I mean it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of these films don't open terribly big in Japan, even so. But yeah, that's
not a good
I can
sign.
definitely see that flying under the radar.
Yeah, very true. Running time is only an hour. There's like no information on ANN about it. That says something. The director also did Cat Blue Dynamite. That's it. So interesting. Like you say, this must have been one of those things that Hirano was working on. Well, obviously a year and a half ago. Well, glad to see it was licensed and brought over here. If nothing else.
It's interesting that it was licensed as well because it's strange how the Western otakus, or at least the otaku companies, let's face it, the companies aren't otakus, they're secretly businessmen made out of robots. Anyway, they seem to do polar opposites. They seem to be bipolar of what they license. Because they don't license the middle ground. They always license either the really popular stuff or the totally under the radar stuff. It's never this sort of middle ground of it.
Yeah, it's either big stuff or stuff that costs 35 cents to license.
Yeah, and it's obvious why you've just pointed out why they do the under the radar stuff because it's cheap.
Yeah,
and it's not much of a risk.
Yeah, I mean,
but then why don't they just take that middle risk? Why spend 35,000 when you could spend 15,000 and just take a risk with the middleman?
Yeah,
I don't see the problem with it.
Yeah, we talk about shows like Denno Coil, which got a lot of attention when it came out, and folks really loved it, and it's just been sitting there unlicensed for years, and no one can quite figure out because it seems like it would find a solid audience over here, certainly amongst the weirder We Love Lane crowd, but it's just like you say, for whatever reason, it's got this really odd little core, and it's just odd. For those curious, here's what it looks like. I'm just throwing up a quick image on the live streams. You can see the rough art style. It actually looks very, traditional anime, but with sort of a Gorillaz feel to it a bit. So, who knows? Very interesting. Okay, moving on. Matt, you want to talk about Child of Eden?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the
yes, that too.
Yes, you understand, of course. But the fact that GameStation has announced it, the people in the UK should know this. If you're a gamer, which I sort of half am, but GameStation are lying buggers, and a lot of UK companies are. Amazon UK, Game, HMV, they've all had the habit of saying they have a release date.
Interesting.
They'll give you a definite release date, and then when that release date comes, they'll go, "Oh, sorry, we made a mistake. This is for a different product."
Okay.
And come up with some random excuse just to get pre-orders. I don't know what it's like in the States, but that's what they do over here sometimes. And it's not the little companies that do it; it's the big companies, which is weird. So anyone that in the UK that's thinking, "Yes, we get this game before the America," no, you don't. It's a lie.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the fact. I don't know it for a fact, but with the amount of times it's happened, it is a fact. You're not getting it before the America. You'll get it on the same day or the day after.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know nothing about the game, so it wasn't the game news. It was just the fact that story's,
Gotcha.
or at least Game Station's lying, and that story just helps advertise the fact that Game Station is lying, so people can go buy it from them.
Yeah.
That's why they do it, because then they get a news story, and then people go, "Ooh, we'll buy it from them," even if they're lying. Because people, if your pre-order's put back, and no one else is getting it before you, you're still going to stick with that pre-order.
Right? Yeah, you're not going to cancel it.
Yeah. So, that's how it's cheating, basically cheating in the sales figures.
You know what's interesting about that?
It's a smart way of cheating.
Yeah. You're going to say something, Brian? No, what's interesting actually about that is, and I mean, we all know that it's, occasionally stuff happens and you have to push back release dates. It's interesting how rarely that happens in the anime world. It happens occasionally, but for a small niche market, really, we don't get that many cases where folks say, okay, it's going to come out, April 3rd, and then April 3rd comes and say, oh wait, no, we got to push it back. And when that happens, it's a pretty big deal. I don't know. Just
yeah.
Well, I guess it's just because of everything else, it happens so often. In anime, when it doesn't happen, everyone shits themselves when it does happen.
Unfortunately, it has happened with Redline.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know when we're going to get that.
Yeah, Redline, which is weird because, I mean, Redline has been premiered at, like, every animation festival in the world. And like every convention in the world, so I'm wondering why they're waiting so long to release it. Odd. I mean,
I don't know what the release is like in Japan. So I mean, I would imagine it probably has something to do with that. I mean, if there's a holdup on the, cause, I mean, it's inevitable that the U.S. the North American release is going to be cheaper than the Japanese release.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah, they may be waiting.
So I can see that. I could definitely see them being worried about something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
They could just be waiting to see how the sales do as well, because then they can prepare more for the American release. if the sales tank in Japan, they can either recall a lot of the stock, or they can send more out in hopes that, because, it's not selling in Japan, let's just ship that stuff over there and hope it sells there.
Yeah,
which is a possibility.
It'd be interesting to see. I'm just checking ANN real quick to see if there's a specific release, Japanese release date. Not really, not for the disc itself. So, yeah, that's I agree. That's probably it. They're waiting on the DVD sales in Japan to get it over here, and it's been a major issue. There's a great YouTube video someone posted of a panel at one of the cons, and they had Michael Cinder Nicholas from New York Post, and a few other folks on there, and they were talking about the anime industry and talking about like the release of Gundam Unicorn, for example, and how they're basically simulcasting that on DVD, if you will, releasing it worldwide, and saying that that's just something they have to do now. That's one of the release things, is they're finding this sort of middle ground price point and releasing it to everyone at that price point, because the old way of doing things doesn't work. Either it's it gets fan subbed, or it gets reverse imported back to Japan, and it's just it's a problem.
It's odd the company hasn't realized this, but or just started using a universal price tag for things.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why, because obviously none of us are businessmen. We're just, we might know a bit about business, but we're not, the top branch of it, or we don't know the, every economic reason why people do things.
Sure.
So, it's either the businessmen, the stereotype really is true that businessmen are stupid. In the end, when it comes down to it, really are just morons, or there is some sort of economic reason why,
Well,
but it's hard to think of one off the top of my head. That's why I just put the point up that I'm just not a businessman.
Well,
so that's why I might not know it if there is one.
Well, and I mean, the main issue that they've said is, when it's released in Japan, it's $60 a disc or $80 a disc. And if it sells at that price at normal Otaku prices, they make money.
Yeah.
If it's released over here at $30 a disc, everyone in Japan buys it at $30 a disc. They don't make money. And so they've got to find some way around it. And so if they sell it for, $40 a disc to everyone, then it's more than we're used to paying, but less than they're used to paying. And hopefully, I don't know how Unicorn is doing, but they certainly haven't, stopped it. So apparently it's not a complete failure. And, at least with that, then there's a chance of it working out. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Interesting.
Maybe Japan, this is an odd, because they have to look at the statistics, but maybe they don't, fully see otakudom in the Western world. So that's why the prices are so low, because they just think, it's not going to sell, or it's not going to sell well. So they just think, put it up for low prices.
Well, the thing is, it's the price it sells for over here. Otaku have consistently said anime is too expensive, and so now it's $20, and it's still too expensive.
That's stupid. well, no, $20 for like what?
For like a show. I can buy 13
for a
episodes.
whole series.
I can buy 13 episodes, 13 episode anime series for $20 straight. There are quite a few of them.
That's not expensive.
No, but still, people complain that anime is expensive. I don't get it.
That's people being whiners.
Yeah.
I was
looking and then saying they're sick of them getting a cough.
What's that, Brian?
I was looking around. I was just saying. I was looking around at Amazon the other day.
Yeah.
You could. They had a package where you could get. You could. All pre-orders, but you could get Summer Wars, the new Eva 2.22 movie, and all of Furikuri for under $50.
Wow, for all of them.
For all that, yeah.
Wow.
Just and it's funny going back and looking at some older anime mags and things like that. I'm so glad that we're getting this one VHS tape with 30 minutes on it for $35. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you can't. I don't think you can complain about the prices.
No.
Well, anybody can complain about anything, but you shouldn't.
And anyone will complain about anything.
Oh, of course.
Jeez.
I think it's again the point that I brought up last week. People just don't know the barn. It's like they don't. Otakus of this day, or the younger otakus, like my generation of otakus, don't realise how pricey it used to be. It's like I didn't realise how pricey it used to be until I got into the nitty gritty and buying magazines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So people are going to complain until they realise how much more expensive it used to be.
Yeah.
Because it really used to be expensive. It was like a house.
Yeah.
It was either eat or have anime.
Yes.
Most people chose anime.
We faced that issue. Yes, it's like, okay, ramen time. But the other thing too, that like we mentioned, frankly, anime now costs what TV on DVD costs, what movies on DVD costs, and it's roughly the same. And I understand that you want to get a lot of your content. The other problem too is that otaku are darned obsessive, as we may have noticed. So we will buy a 26 episode series and watch it in a week. And that is different. That we get through content really darn quickly compared to other folks where they're like, okay, here's a season 1 of Buffy. I'm going to spend the next month watching it. We just don't do it that way.
You don't have a friend. Well, no, Friends is about an example because you do have a Friends marathon, or at least I do, at least once a year.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe 4 times a year, but that's another point. You don't have a Buffy marathon, unless you're that obsessed.
Yeah.
Or just that into it. Obsessed is a poor choice of words, but compared to otakus, the people that watch, that buy DVDs, they don't watch it at all. They watch it like once every 10 years compared to otakus who watch their stuff in like 5 minutes, even though you've got tons of content.
Yeah.
Well, not including special features, because more often than not, anime special features are pants. That's probably one of the reasons why they're complaining. I think I brought this up again as well before, because in anime DVDs you don't get special features.
And you
compared
used to.
Well, sometimes, in the films you get special features, but in a lot of the series, from what I've looked and bought, you get very little.
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the reasons why they're complaining. It's like content for per pound kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's a silly thing to complain about because you're still getting it for the same price you would buy anything else.
Yeah. But yeah, it's otaku are obsessive by definition.
Yes, that's kind of the word. So why wouldn't we be?
Exactly. So it is. We are a different, and of course, not that excuses the behavior. Saying, well, so I'm just going to download it all. That doesn't help. But that is what people. I mean, I when I was working with a youth group locally, I showed them an episode of Rurouni Kenshin TV series, and they started talking about some of the moral implications and so forth. And the next week, one of the girls tapped me on the shoulder and said, that was a really good show. I was like, you hadn't seen it last week. Yeah, I went and watched all of it. I was like, you watched all of Kenshin TV? Yeah, I just really liked it. I was like, oh my god, 13-year-old girl. And that's just what happens, and it is interesting. So of course the question there is, like you say, it's not just a matter of the bottom of the prices. I think a lot of modern otaku don't understand the bottom of the market. The fact that it's gotten so cheap that the market can't sustain itself.
Yeah, definitely. The one more point about the watching it quickly thing is again, otakus for some reason when it comes to anime, but only anime, don't seem to know how to restrain themselves. It's like if you watch one, I'll watch another. I'll watch another. But it's like otaku should just find a system. It's like when I buy an anime on DVD, unless I'm home sick, I'm not doing anything else, I'll watch it all.
Yeah.
But, otherwise, otaku should start setting out themselves a system. You watch either one today, wait a day, then watch another the day after that, because you draw it out. Yeah. And, it's kind of like the when we were talking about Dragon Ball Z, they're doing a stream again. It's like they're releasing it episode by episode.
Yeah.
Doing something like that is surprisingly satisfying because it gives you something to look forward to. And if you watch it all so quickly, you don't have anything to look forward to, do you? You've kind of just thrown everything away in the space of 2 days.
Yeah.
Which kind of it kind of ruins it. It kind of devaluizes it being able to watch it all so quickly. Because what's so special about owning a DVD? I can watch it whenever I want, but you'll get bored of watching it whenever you want if you're going to watch it all whenever you want, not just bit by bit.
Yeah.
I did have a point, but it flew away out the window.
Brian, did you have a comment on that
rambling.
one? Brian, do you have a comment on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I was watching, I actually didn't keep up with Buffy when it was on the air, and when I did actually get around to watching it, my wife and we did kind of marathon. We sometimes marathon other things. So we watched a lot of that. We actually just got done. I don't know for what number of time, but we just got finished kind of marathoning all of Arrested Development.
Oh,
as
nice.
well.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean that's one of our favorite shows, and we just one evening we decided to let's start watching it again, and just started from the first episode, and then just kind of ended up watching it all the way through over it was over the course of I don't know how long. I mean, it wasn't a day or something like that, but I mean it was a relatively short period of time. But yeah, I mean I definitely and I think too marathoning shows can also. Yeah, you might not get as much out of it because I mean, especially longer shows that are kind of that are paced so that I mean, if you watch something back to back, you might be like, oh, this there's a lot of. I mean, something that might otherwise seem like character development perhaps could seem more like filler if you're watching it too quickly. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with that.
Well, I mean,
I think it can negatively impact your appreciation of a show if you watch it too quickly, like too much all in a row.
And Buffy was a poor choice, come to think of it, because
I got
that
a
is a show that
angry
you
message
can
from
just.
my girlfriend just now saying I do. I'm like, oops, I should have picked something else.
And when I think about it, I had a friend who was and is really into Buffy, and so he would he would do that, and it's a show that is also structured more like, okay, if you do watch a season all at once, you see all this stuff. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff. I was reading, one guy was saying that Macross 7 is a show that needs to be watched one episode per week, because it's light, it's got stuff going on, but when you try to marathon it and cram a lot of it in, you see the flaws more quickly. But if you're just consuming, okay, here's my half hour of this once a week, it just goes down a lot more easily, and it is a different way of watching it. Actually, a friend of mine and I watched. We used to watch Gundam, and we just watch. We'd buy the DVDs and just watch it. And then it got to the point where we have to watch it episode by episode because it was coming out, and it was a very different experience. And it was really fun to have that week to wonder, okay, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, it builds up your appreciation and excitement to the show.
Yeah.
You're not very excited about a show when you finish one episode and you go, "Oh, should we watch the next one? Oh, I wonder what happens next." But if it's like you watch an episode, you all gather as 5 friends and watch an episode when it's aired, you're instantly like, "Should we watch the next episode?" We can't because it's not here yet. You get extremely into it, and you just want to watch the next bit so bad. You're just waiting the entire week, and it builds up your love for the show. You're just constantly thinking, "Ooh, I can't wait," so you just sit and wait and wait and get really anticipated for this next bit of this awesome show you like. But again, if you just watch it, the next episode straight away, it's kind of lackluster in the end.
You can, definitely.
Yep.
So, and of course, then there are the shows like Lane. Actually, is one of the shows that I recommend to folks. Watch large amounts at once, because you really want to. There's enough going on that if you watch some and then go away and come back, you're kind of lost. But if you watch a fair chunk, you can kind of keep up with it. And it's one of those shows that benefits more from seeing a lot at once. But it depends.
There are definitely shows out there that are like that. It's like it's the only one I could probably name out of nowhere is Outlaw Star. It's good to watch maybe three episodes at once and then wait.
Yeah.
Because it's just that kind of show. But again, there's just anime is so varying that some shows are made to be anticipated and waited for, no matter how many times you've watched those episodes. And then there are others that you hate waiting a week because you kind of just, instead of being anticipated, you just kind of think, like slice of life animes, because there's nothing there. Especially something like Lucky Star, where no one episode connects to the other. Yeah. I don't understand how people got into that without marathoning it, because, there's nothing, you're not waiting for anything. You're just kind of thinking, what are they going to do next that I could go down to the shops and do myself? I mean, I'm not dissing Lucky Star. I think it was awesome, other than the ending, which was just kind of...
ending?
But... I didn't like this ending of Lucky Star, the series. That is, well, sort of, yeah. It just, I don't know. The anime just kind of, the ending was just kind of pants. But anyway,
you should watch His and Her Circumstances one of these days.
I think someone told me to watch that or not watch it because I didn't like I wouldn't like the ending.
It is fantastic, but there is, and this is not a spoiler, there is no ending. They adapted the manga straight. And once they got to 26 episodes worth of content, they stopped.
Nice.
And I don't know if they thought they were going to be able to come back and do a second season or whatever. But they're just, now, granted, I mean, all the character stuff is not worked out. But, it doesn't stop on a cliffhanger or anything. But it's just, 26 episodes, we're done. So it's very, very odd.
It would have worked. That would have worked if they'd have put, go read the manga.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they didn't.
Not specifically, no.
No. Well, it probably inspired people to read the manga, but, that wasn't their objective. So, something like that, I'm guessing they just waited to make an ending. Anyway, just last thing about Lucky Star, then, is just, that's made to be marathoned. Maybe not the entire series in a day, which I may or may not have done. But, it's made to be watched in large chunks because it's so slice of life. There's nothing driving you to wait a week. You know,
Yeah.
it's like when the next week comes around, you kind of wait 4 days before you even watch the next episode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're just kind of like, eh. But if it's slice of life, if you're marathoning Lucky Star, you've already got nothing to do. So, you know, watching someone else live their lives while you don't is quite entertaining.
Yeah, watching other people
But,
who
you know, if
also
you've
have
got a
nothing to
week
do.
of life in between,
Yeah.
you kind of forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. What else? Oh yeah, the Kamen Rider figurine arrests.
Yeah.
All right. So basic background here. 2 guys modified a Kamen Rider figurine, and modified it quite heavily. And they sold it. I'm pulling it. I forget if they sold it on eBay or an eBay equivalent. Yeah, it just says online. They modified the figure into a Kamen Rider W villain character without Toei's permission. And to give you an idea, it ended with a closing bid of 269,000 yen, about $3,300 from a buyer in Tokyo. And basically, it's a stunning figure, but they're basically violating Japan's Copyright Act for doing this without getting Toei's permission and selling it essentially commercially. But this is a very rare thing. You know, folks generally don't get slammed for these things. But it's kind of surprising to see it happen.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Do you think it was because of the amount of money that it was, perhaps?
I don't know.
It wouldn't be anything else, really. You know, if they sold it for £10, the company wouldn't have cared. You know, because it's kind of like we make more money on the actual figure. Mm-hmm. But you know, if they're selling it for $3,000 US, was it $3,000 Did you say?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, three grand. You know, the company's going to be thinking, wait a minute, do we even make this much on the actual figure? No. So you know, then they're going to be pretty pissed. It's, to put it in a sort of petty way, they're probably just jealous a little.
Yeah.
Just like, we don't make this much money. No money for you. I don't know why they suddenly turned Jamaican, but you know, it probably, well, not probably, definitely is the money reasons, because otherwise they wouldn't care. You know, it's like, oh, you've modified our figure. That's just more advertisement for us. Simple as. But if, you know, three grand,
yeah,
they want that money.
Yeah, and the thing too is, you know, it's not like they started with a mold and made a mold and did a garage kit themselves. This was, let's take their stuff, tweak it around, and obviously spend tons of time on it, and then sell it. So that they are using someone else's material. So I think that's kind of where they got nabbed. I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question. I know there's plenty of garage kits in Japan. Is there a lot of like figure modding that then is like sold at conventions?
Probably at conventions, because conventions are a little more lenient with stuff like that.
True.
But I don't think it's sort of a black market kind of thing. If it is sold, it's sold between groups of friends or colleagues.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's this big thing. Because, well, it probably would do well, but it just doesn't seem like something that would. Because it's like art, you know. If you spend so much time on something like this, you just want to show off that you did it, not not give it away.
Yeah.
You know, because the people that sold this are essentially artists. You know, they might have been thieving artists, but they are still, artists. To an extent, you know. I mean, you're showing pictures of it now. Look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's.
I don't know how detailed the other one was, but or how different it is compared to the other one. But that's serious work. You know, that's craftsmanship.
That is.
And if normally when people do something like that, they don't want to sell it. They want to keep it and have a constant reminder that they did it. Mm-hmm. You know, so the fact that these dudes sold it is surprising, but smart.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think it'll be this big thing. You know, if it's sold between, it's sold to your friend at work or that's asked you to do it. You haven't done this and then sold it. You've been asked to do it and then sold it.
Yeah. the two suspects have allegedly said that since it was just one handmade figure and not a reproduction of a mass-produced figure, that's one of the things is that there is no figurine of this character available. So they figured that since there's no real version and since it was just one, they thought it would be, quote, they thought its sale would be overlooked, end quote. Which, to be honest, tells you that they did realize that this was something that probably wasn't totally legit. But like you said, it's a fan thing. I'm curious. I'm also curious as to whether this is the only one.
Yeah, it probably would have been overlooked if it wasn't $3,000.
Yeah.
Again,
I wonder what the starting bid was. I mean, I wonder. You can kind of feel bad. I wonder if they put it out there and said, maybe we'll get $50 for it.
Yeah,
and then,
it's I mean, they probably didn't realize how heavy it would sell. It is, and they've just they've broken the law, but they didn't expect to break the law this much.
Right.
Kind of, it's they expected to make a bit of money to make up how much it cost them to do it. And maybe a bit more to buy a nice cheeseburger.
Yeah.
They didn't expect to be able to buy a lot of cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
So that they've kind of been caught when they didn't. They didn't necessarily think there was anything to be caught for.
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but hopefully that didn't. Oh well.
Actually, if this is to be believed, I just pulled up the Yahoo auction page. It's still up.
Oh,
and
wow.
if it's to be believed that they started with the starting price of 1 yen.
Whoa!
So they went from 1 yen up to what was it? 269,001 yen over 69 bids. So I don't know.
And if I'm reading this correctly, 11/3/1926, 11/7/22/25. So they only had it up for 4 days.
Yeah, looks like it.
Wow! In 4 days,
these guys can't have expected, can't have realized they were breaking the law, because if they're putting that much effort into something and then putting it up for 1 yen. They're stupid. They're morons. Of course they didn't expect to be caught. They're idiots. 1 yen. If I put that much effort into something, I'm putting it up for £1 million. 1 yen.
Yeah.
Did they not go to school?
Now, of course,
did they not realise how much effort and money goes together?
Now, of course, it is certainly possible that they put it up for 1 yen, knowing it would sell for a lot more. But I do that a lot. I'll start things at $1, knowing that'll get folks bidding. But still, that's wow. That's about 69 bids. I wonder. I'm just looking at some of the.
It got that
bid
high
history.
in 69 bids.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also interesting the bidding history, at least of the wow, that's really interesting. The 7 final bids are 10,000 yen, 10,000 yen, 50,000 yen, 80,000 yen, 151,000 yen, 268,000 yen, and 269,000 yen. So this was basically like 3 people who pushed it from basically $80 to 280. I'm sorry, more than that. From $800 to $2,000 in the course of like a day.
They really wanted that figure.
Interesting.
I mean, it's I don't know. It's a strange thing of how dedicated or obsessed otakus are. It's just it always baffles me, when people spend this much, especially on a fan thing. It's again, I'm always baffled when people pay so much for something that was on the set of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's it's really cool, but you could buy so much more stuff that wasn't on the set of Star Wars, but has something to do with Star Wars, with the amount of money you're spending on one item. And the coolness, will probably outweigh that one cool thing.
Yeah.
Yes, that one cool thing is a bragging item, but only to other Star Wars fans. And with this, it's like I spent $3,000 on this toy to otakus that are all, you know, and it's not just otakus, it's otakus that are into this show, you know, but anyone else is just going to go, you moron. You could have donated that to charity, you stupid wanker. You know, it baffles me when people do that.
It's why, and this will probably tick off some people or frustrate people, but I've never understood why people pay a lot for like signatures. You know,
I wouldn't do that.
I mean, autographs are cool, but why you would pay, you know, 10 times the amount for something because it has the person's autograph in there? You know, a premium, fine, but there's just something where it's like, oh my gosh, this is worse. I don't get. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I've never paid for an autograph. All the autographs I've ever gotten were free. It's like one of the hats I wear in the show. You can't. I don't think you can see it on the camera, but yeah, you can. Covered in autographs.
Yeah, nice.
All free. You know, I went up to the dude and said, "Can I have your autograph?" I didn't say, "If I pay you £10,000, will you sign me?"
Yeah.
Again, I have some tickets over there that I got signed. You know, it's like I paid to be at your show.
Yeah.
Don't make me pay to have your signature. You know, it's like if you're going to, because this is just an example. The dude I got the ticket signed at, you know, he said, "I'm going to be sat at the table over there signing things."
Yeah.
If I'd have got there and he said, "Right, £10, please," I'd have gone, "No, fuck off."
Right. Yeah.
You said you were sat here signing things.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sit here and sign things and then expect to be paid for it. Yeah, if someone comes up and hassles you for a signature, or you're doing it for some sort of charity thing, charge me. But if you're going to sit there and say, "I'm going to sign whatever," at least make sure people know you're charging, so then they can tell you to go shove yourself. Anyway, back to anime.
So anyway, this is what happens on the show. We go off on tangents. Okay,
and that's why we split the shows.
Exactly. Yes, that's why we have the news show and then we have the show. So let's see here. This is kind of a nice one. What was that, Brian?
No, I said I need to change my hat.
Oh. So Mamoru Oshii. Hey, Brian's here. Perfect. Brian can talk all about this if he wants to.
Yeah, sure.
So he's finishing the story that Satoshi Kon drew. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. So back in the mid to early 90s, so Oshii and Kon were working on this manga that was running in Anime Age magazine, and it was called Seraphim.
Mm-hmm.
It has like this actual huge long title, like Seraphim, some huge number of wings or something like that. But I'll just call it Seraphim. But yeah, so they were working on this manga. It was serialized in Anime Age.
It's Seraphim 266,613,336 wings. That's the title. Yes.
That's annoying.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so just recently, like end of 2010, they finally collected all this manga into a tankobon. And so I mean, that was like 15 years or something after it was originally serialized. That they finally collected it. And I've been I haven't read the whole thing because I haven't picked up the tankobon, and I have like a couple of I've got maybe like 5 to 10 of the animages that the manga ran in, just things I've been able to pick up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read bits and pieces of it, but not the whole thing.
Okay.
But apparently it wasn't. They didn't get a chance to finish it. I guess it was like canceled before they could finish it out for some reason.
Yeah.
And so now Oshii is there. He's going back and he's writing a novel on the story that he and Kon had been working on. So that should be interesting.
Yeah. Scheduled for when? Is it 2012?
2012, yeah, but there are little bits and pieces I think have been coming out. Like, I think the prologue for it is coming out in this, like the most recent issue of Comic View magazine.
Okay.
So he's already started doing some stuff on it.
Okay, gotcha. Looks like it'll be spread out. Now, I'm not too familiar with Oshii's other work besides his films. Has he done a lot of fiction writing?
He's done some novels and stuff, mostly based on kind of other like films that he's worked on. So he's actually done a couple of Pat Labor novels and that. And actually, there's a new Pat Labor novel, that he's working on, that he had worked on, that's coming out in Japan at the end of this month. Cool. So that's kind of cool. So I mean, there's new Pat Labor stuff coming out.
Yeah.
He did the only thing that's come out in English that novel wise was Blood the Last Vampire novel. But let's see, he also did a novel for Avalon.
Oh, okay.
The live action film.
Huh.
Let's see, he did a novel. There's a movie that came out. I want to say 2004. No. Like maybe 2006. Is called Tachigui, Legend of the Fast Food Grifters, or something like that.
Yeah, heard of that.
And anyway, so that he back in 2003, 2004, Oshii had actually written a novel that he later adapted for that movie. So that was originally a novel that he had written.
Okay.
So yeah, he kind of dabbles in novel writing here and there. So it could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to see him continuing to do that. I mean, I always support when artists not just branch out, but do multiple things. Where it's like, okay, directing and novel and other stuff. It sort of keeps you fresh.
Right.
Cool. So we'll see how that works out.
We're hearing a lot about stuff like this in the news. I think we've had this is the third story of an old project by one person being picked up by another person.
That's true.
I mean, this is the first where one of the people picking it up was working on it in the first place.
Right.
But it's nice to see old stuff or stuff being picked up. It's like one of the things was a movie and the director died, and then the new director came along. That was obviously really nice. And this is just nice because it's an old project. It's just something about someone going back and picking up an old project says something about the project. It possibly builds up a little too much anticipation for the project because it's like, oh, if he picked it back up, it must be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more often than not, it's just the dude liked the story himself, so he wanted to do it again. But it just says something about the people working on it. The fact that they decided to pick it up, it says something about them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like what happened with Nausicaa, where Miyazaki started the manga and then started doing these animated films, which did rather well, and bounced back and forth. But he kept coming back to Nausicaa to finally finish that manga. And I mean, I'm so glad he did, because those later volumes are just so much more complex and interesting than the earlier volumes, thanks to Miyazaki coming back to it and saying, okay, I've had 10 years to think about this. Let me develop my story in interesting ways. So good to see. Anyway, anything else on that?
Not for me.
All right. What else? Good on Maya Sakamoto for her #1 Oricon ranking CD album.
Woo!
Nice to see.
I don't know what that was. It was really camp, but I did it anyway.
It's awesome. Woohoo! I'm Southern. I can do rebel yells, so I can. I'm fine with that. For those watching who don't know, Maya Sakamoto is Mari Illustrious, Michio Amano, Luna Maria Hawk, Haruhi and Oran, Hitomi and Escaflowne, and the list goes on. And she has this lovely singing career. And actually, those of you who've seen Wolf's Rain, the end credit song, Gravity, that gorgeous, incredibly depressing piece of music, that's Maya Sakamoto. Which stunned me, actually. I thought that was an American. That's perfect English. Anyway, so her latest album ranked #1 on the Oricon charts, which is just good to see.
And at least it's not fecking K-On! Again. I mean, I like K-On! Again. I've said this before. I've got a K-On! plushie. But, it's just, no matter what it is, if I see something in the charts for too long, I just think, Bagger off. Even if if the Tuaru Medusa Not Index DVD was on the top of the charts for 4 weeks, even then I'd be kind of like, give other people a chance.
Yeah.
Stop releasing things for a while. Be nice.
Yeah.
Let other people win the gold medal.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to be happy about. It's not K-On! Again.
Yeah.
Because it just means more people get into K-On!, not more people get into other stuff as well as K-On!
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the main, it did. I tried to really quickly come up with a reason why I wasn't being petty, and I had an actual logical reason,
There
and
we
that's
go.
it. People get into if the same things are popular all the time, how is anyone going to be varied in their interests?
Yeah.
Everyone's just going to be into the same things,
Right. Yeah.
which isn't good.
Yeah. K-On! Does not need more advertising.
No, it does not.
So, yeah. All right. So, anything else you guys want to cover news-wise?
I think there was. I don't know why I did really high-pitched then, but let's have a look at the thing. Strange me. We could talk a little bit about the Eva plug suit.
Oh, yes. Let's do that. Let me...
What? Just another one in the many Evangelion products that you can buy these days.
And this one's just so classy. Let's see here. Let me pull off the image.
It actually seems to work. So
I will give them credit for the fact that, if nothing else, this does... If I were to buy an Eva plug suit, I would at least want it to be functional, which is a very odd thing to say. Say what?
Yeah, just saying. Yeah. I mean, it'll actually. It's not just cosplay. It'll actually do something for you.
Right. Exactly. So those one that we're talking about, you can now buy wetsuits that look like Evangelion plug suits. They have Shinji, Rei, and Asuka types. I threw an image up here real quick. And like I said, they are. It's a form-fitting, full suit, and you got to admit, if you're scuba diving or something, you want something that's kind of stylish and different. This is certainly something that stands out from the crowd, and it doesn't look ridiculously unlike a wetsuit. Is the one nice thing.
Yeah.
It's just half the people seeing that are going to say, "Oh wow, he's an otaku." Okay.
Well, a lot of people seeing it probably will, or at least not in the Western side. They'll probably just think, "Wow, that looks cool."
Yeah. If you're in Japan, they'll know what it is. Otherwise,
probably yeah. Well, definitely. But even then, it just whether it's otaku or not, or people look at them and make that presumption, they've still got to admit it looks cool.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it should be more women wearing them, but or at least more women in sexy poses wearing them.
There we go.
With pictures, of course. Just big neon sign, pervert. Anyway, whether it was otaku or not, it looks cool. It doesn't look unlike a wetsuit. It's not like, and it's not going to encumber people. It's like, oh, he's wearing this again. Yes, it looks cool, but it's not a plug suit, a wetsuit. But this is functional and it looks nice. So yes, sexy poses on the video there. Yes, Matthew is happy. I shouldn't be saying this because my girlfriend is watching. I'm going to be in trouble tomorrow.
Stop tape!
Stop filming! What was I saying? I'm worried with that.
Mine completely
it's
derailed.
and it looks nice.
Yeah.
So there's it. I can be fully behind someone buying this. Even if it is a higher price, because you're not just paying for the the brand. You're paying for the fact that it looks nice. Because what does a wetsuit look like? Black or blue? You don't get much varied. It's like, should I wear the black or should I wear the blue? It's should I wear the black or this awesome thing?
Yeah, I mean, it says about looks like they're going for about $2,000.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much a regular wetsuit.
That's a good
costs.
question.
Not $2,000, basically.
Probably not.
You're probably not 100
probably about
either.
100.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking more like $100.
Yeah. Over here, wetsuits are about £100.
Yeah.
They're expensive because obviously the fabric is expensive.
Right.
And I don't think the brand, again, affects the price or all of that 2,000.
Yeah.
Because, the fabric, they're not just using different dyes, they're using different fabrics to make this.
True.
There's a lot more effort into this wetsuit than anything. So I'm guessing that's added, probably at least another $200 to the.
Yeah, and you're talking, it's not a single color wetsuit. There's a design involved in trying to make it look right. So yeah, I totally understand that. It is
Obviously,
a zipperless
the brand does contribute to the price.
Yes.
There is no doubt the brand contributes to the price, but not as much as a lot of people will think.
Right. Yeah. It's not $20 plus a $1,980 markup. And I will say it is a zipperless wetsuit, so it is skin tight basically. So it is going to be a full scale wetsuit. Wow. Yeah, definitely interesting. Anything else?
No, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Cool. All right. Well then,
we can all dance, but that's not really part of anime.
Yeah, that's true. We don't really have I don't have dance music that I can legally show.
Dance party.
So let's do the question of the week. Every week I ask a question and then completely forget about it. But this week I didn't. So we're going to go through the question of the week from last week, which was name your favorite quote from an anime, and I'll let Matt and Brian think about that while I go through the questions or the answers I've received.
Sorry, what was the question again?
What's your favorite quote from an anime?
Oh, bollocks. I'm going to think about this really quickly now. Come on!
That's okay. You have some time. Robert Clyde Allen, a great friend of mine on YouTube, said his favorite is from Van Dread. Friends are like mirrors. You see your reflection in them. Which is a very nice quote. Retro Ali, his quote comes from episode 12 of Midori Days, oddly enough. When the main character and his friend are walking back from a certain shop that sells certain items. A bunch of guys want to help him, want to fight his friend, Seiji won't help him, and so forth. And the quote is, "It's not your ass I'm trying to save, it's that bag full of ass I just bought at the shop." Which is a darn funny quote. Robert Adams says that his quote is from episode 26 of Phantom Requiem for the Phantom. And the quote is, "Go to hell ahead of me. I just want to stay here longer, with him and nothing else." Very, very nice. And then a quote I just got, a quote from Gurren Lagann, everyone's favorite modern mecha series. And it's one of the more famous quotes. "Don't believe in yourself. Believe in me, who believes in you," which is great. And I see that Matt has one. Matt, go ahead. What's your quote?
Do I? Oh,
do you?
Well, I do, but yes. It's a toss-up between two that are both from Toara Medusa no Index. The first one is from the first episode where Index says, "Will then..." Get me? No, she says, "So will you follow me into the depths of hell?" I just think it's really cool because she just turns around and says this because, Toma is trying to convince her to let him help her. Yeah. And then she just says this and he's just dumbstruck.
Yeah.
Which is really, really awesome. And then one is from one of my favourite episodes of Toara Medusa no Index, and that's it's not what you said, but it can. Sorry, I am having to paraphrase this, but it's what Misaka says. She says it can be misconstrued or misunderstood because it's sort of a hint at what the line was. Because in the scene, Toma says something to this bad guy, and they're actually discussing the fact that they both are attracted to Misaka. Misaka. But you don't get to hear it. And you're already going, what was the line? And then that just intensifies the fact that you know what the line is, but you have no confirmation of what the line is.
Interesting.
Which is just a really good choice of words, in my opinion. So it's a toss-up between one of those. I guess if I had to choose, it'd be the Index one. Even though, the fact that Misaka said it. It's like, ooh. I don't have to worry about my girlfriend being pissed about that as well, because she was here today and I was already going ooh, because Misaka's my wallpaper.
Yep.
Anywho, but yeah, the index line is just really good, just because it doesn't. It's not just because it fits well. It just invokes your own emotions when you hear it in context. You just sit there and kind of think, "Wow, would I really do that for someone?"
Yeah.
And that it makes you think, and that's what's good about anime, because it does make you think. And that's my favorite line then.
Cool. Brian, do you have one? Can you think of one?
I've been thinking. I don't know if I had the as much time as I wanted to think about it. I don't know what I would come up with. But for right now, I'll go with. Since you mentioned it earlier, I'll go with Gurren Lagann. But I'll go with "Who the hell do you think I am?"
Nice.
I think that's a good kind of all-purpose quote. I feel
that's a great quote, and there's so much behind that, which was a lot of fun.
Right.
It's hard with this because there are some lines I can think of, and probably the one that kind of hit me the hardest is one that makes no sense out of context. So I've got that problem. Probably my favorite line is "You're wrong," which comes at the end of Serial Experiments Lane, when Lane has sort of her friend has come over, and Alice, and Lane has basically said has basically laid out the entire philosophy of the series and all this stuff about technology and its relationship to human and so forth, and Alice just says "You're wrong," and in about 4 lines manages to completely flip the entire series over on its head and present a completely different way of seeing all of this stuff. And I love it for the fact that it's not portrayed in a way that is confrontational. Alice is just saying, "I disagree, and here's why," and it's just wonderful. It's really, really neat to see. So that probably another one is from Boogie Pop Phantom, a line. A girl has been visited by the Boogie Pop or the Boogie Pop Phantom, depending on how you look at it, who essentially shows that this girl has had completely the wrong view of life in general, and the girl is waiting for Boogie Pop to take her away and says, "I'm prepared, I'm ready to go," and Boogie Pop looks down at her and says, "You're not worth taking," and turns and walks off. And it's just that moment that wait, what? This character has this power to take people away, refuses, because this person is so incredibly, wrong about things, and it's so not worth, is completely uninterested, or interesting. It's one of those wonderfully stunning, and the girl is just left there completely crushed by this, by realizing that, oh my gosh, I am so totally off, But again, it's not as interesting as, "This hand of mine burns with an awesome power. It is telling me to defeat you."
Brent, I have a question.
Yeah.
How many people sent in an email saying it's over 9,000?
None. Thank the Lord.
They must be really scared of you. But anyway, more of a relevant thing. It really is the best lines in, not just anime, in everything, are the lines that, are basically like a punch in the face. Really there, and you can't forget it because you've been punched in the face. It's really, it doesn't have to be sudden, but it really just has to, if someone said it, the room would go silent kind of thing. This really strong, the person says it with such strength. There's no disagreement in the person's voice. They're just instantly just like, whatever you say now means nothing because I have said this. It's kind of like end of, the conversation is over because I have spoken. Kind of thing. And those are the awesome lines.
That's very true. So the question for next week is going to be something rather interesting. I asked a couple of weeks ago, what's your favorite anime soundtrack? And I have one that's kind of related but different in an important way. What one anime soundtrack deserves to survive the apocalypse? Meaning, assuming that for whatever reason, anime soundtracks just don't survive, they all get erased 20 years from now. What is one soundtrack that is not just your favorite? It may not be your favorite, but one that is so impressive as a piece of music, as a musical work, that's the one that deserves to be passed down to future generations. That's the question for next week. So.
Not fair. You're giving me too many things to think about.
I make you think. I'm so sorry. All right, so I think that will do it for this week. I want to thank very much Brian Rue for joining us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt, for joining us as well.
As always, it is just the greatest pleasure on the planet to entertain a bunch of otakus, and I'll do it again like I did last week. Go listen to the Life and Tips of Anime after you've checked out everything to do with Brent and Brian.
There we go.
Brian, also, I'm going to have to get you on the show sometime.
Absolutely.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Cool.
I like you now. I like you even more.
All right, and thank you all for joining us. See you all next week.